OpenAI just spent $7 billion buying shares from its own employees. Nice. And the company was valued at $852 billion whilst doing it, so it sounds like a pretty good deal. But literally straight after this, people running the company started leaving. Longtime COO Brad Lightcap announced he was leaving, and the Chief Revenue Officer Denise Dresser announced she was leaving too. These aren't like random employees, they're fucking important executives, alright? And they're just fucking, they're leaving, they're gone. Now, why are so many of them leaving right before what could become one of the biggest IPOs in history? Now let's start with this $7 billion, okay? OpenAI recently completed a roughly $7 billion tender offer, allowing current and former employees to sell their shares. That transaction alone valued the company at around $852 billion. So this is the weird part, okay? So OpenAI buying back the shares from the employees, whereas normally the employees would sell their shares on a brokerage to other investors outside the company. It's useful because when an outside investor is saying, like, yeah, I think this company's worth this much, I'm gonna pay this much. Now that actually values a company properly. But OpenAI is instead using its own cash to provide liquidity. That is very disconcerting, effectively making up their own market evaluation. Now let's talk about Brad. Okay. So he had OpenAI's chief operating officer for roughly 8 years. That is a very, very long time in the AI industry. And he was one of the people who built OpenAI into what it is today. Then there's Denise Dresser. She joined OpenAI from Slack and had only been chief revenue officer for around 8 months, and now she's fucking gone too. This makes the timing rather curious, because Dresser wasn't brought in to help AI remain like a scrappy little fucking tech startup broke cum duster. She was brought in to help operate a company that was already worth hundreds of billions of dollars. She was the real deal. Then you've got Kevin Weil, OpenAI's former chief product officer, who moved into research before leaving to start his own AI company. Bill Peebles, who led Sora, left. Fidji Simo, who had joined OpenAI as CEO of applications, stepped away from that role. And then there's also been departures across research, safety, ethics, and other senior positions as well.
Oh, jinkies.
Now, we've seen these games before, we've played them before, okay? In November 2023, Sam Altman, the big OpenAI CEO founder, big boy, was fired. OpenAI's revenue hadn't collapsed, ChatGPT hadn't stopped working, the board simply had lost confidence in him. But when Altman got kicked out, got booted out, got the shoe up the coochie, then hundreds of employees threatened to leave. So Altman was their puppy, and Microsoft was potentially about to inherit a huge chunk of OpenAI's talent. And 5 days later, lo and behold, Sam Altman was back. Woo! Now, OpenAI has a few problems, one being a safety problem, and this is where the story gets a little bit kooky. Because OpenAI was not originally built like a normal technology company, the whole premise was that sufficiently powerful artificial intelligence, Jesus, that's a mouthful, could create enormous benefits, right? But also enormous risks, as we know. So you basically needed people inside OpenAI whose job was basically to say, hang on guys, that's fucking retarded. Which sounds like a very useful department to have when you're building a potential transformative technology that could really negatively impact the world, right? You would think that almost $1 trillion company would figure that fucking out by now, right? Except OpenAI has increasingly reorganized those safety functions. Teams have been dissolved, reporting structures have been changed, and senior safety researchers are gone. The preparedness function, the people whose job involved assessing serious AI risks, was reportedly disbanded at the end of July. Other safety focus groups have already been dissolved or reorganized, and this isn't happening in a vacuum. OpenAI has simultaneously been moving toward a much more conventional corporate structure. It has raised staggering amounts of money, it has enormous commercial ambitions, It has customers to satisfy. Investors to answer to, and competitors just looking down their necks saying, "You're not really it, buddy." And that brings me to the big boy, the IPO. OpenAI is reportedly preparing for a public listing that could happen as early as next year, although this exact timing remains completely uncertain. And if the company eventually goes public anywhere near the valuations being discussed, this won't be some ordinary tech IPO. It could be one of the biggest public listings we have ever seen in the history of the US market. This is big dollars here, fellas. Which means investors are going to start asking questions that the venture capitalists can sometimes afford to ignore. How much money does this thing actually make? You know, do these guys turn a profit? How much does it cost to run? How much more computing power does it need? And perhaps more importantly, can the economics of AI actually justify the amount of money being spent on it? I fucking wonder what. Because OpenAI doesn't exist in isolation. It's sitting in the middle of a gigantic financial AI ecosystem. Microsoft needs AI to generate returns on its infrastructure spending. Nvidia needs companies to keep buying its fucking chips. Oracle needs customers to fill enormous data centers. Amazon is spending tens of billions of dollars on infrastructure. Google's doing the same. Meta's doing the same. And all of these companies are making enormous investments based on the assumption that AI demand will continue to explode. I mean, where have I seen this before? OpenAI is one of the biggest reasons investors actually believe this story. And that's when the things get slightly circular. Nvidia invests in AI companies. AI companies use the money to buy Nvidia chips. Cloud companies buy infrastructure for the AI companies. AI companies promise they will eventually generate enough revenue to justify all that infrastructure. Everyone is spending billions because everyone expects someone else to make billions. I'm starting to see a circular shape here. A little circle. Eventually, someone has to prove that this all makes money in the end. And guess what? It fucking doesn't. Now, I'm gonna talk about fucking another statistic that captures a problem, okay? One MIT study cited in the discussion found that an overwhelming majority of enterprise generative AI pilot projects produced no measurable impact on profits. What a fucking surprise. I mean, AI is definitely not useless, okay? It definitely has enormous commercial applications. Like, one I could think of is like Excel spreadsheets, right? Shit's fucking pretty gas at it, okay? But when you look at it, you know, you're weighing up the benefits and the problems. I think the problems far outweigh the benefits. Now, here's the gigantic difference, okay? I'm gonna do two quotes. One quote, AI is going to be useful, okay? Second quote, which is more important, AI is going to generate enough profit to justify a $1 trillion company and hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure spending. Oh, did I just change your fucking paradigm? And investors, when that IPO comes out, have to decide which one they're actually buying. And I am very, very positive that it will be the second one. And they will go through those balance sheets and see, wait, hang on, this company's not making profit. In conclusion, when you look at the $7 billion employee tender, the executive departures, the restructuring of safety teams, and the looming IPO, I don't think the most interesting question is OpenAI in trouble? We fucking know it is. It's not a question, it's a reality. This company is still growing and it still has enormous amounts of capital, but it remains one of the most important IPOs in history. And the interesting question is, instead of, is OpenAI in trouble? We already know the answer to that. Is why are so many people who helped build OpenAI choosing to leave at exactly the moment when the company is preparing to convince the rest of the world that it's worth nearly $1 trillion? I cannot wait for this IPO. It is going to be so fucking hilarious when this bubble bursts, and I'm just going to be sitting back in my seat waiting to capitalize off that fucking money. Anyways, that's it for today. Altman is your daddy. He always will be. Hope you enjoyed the video. Goodbye. Mwah.